Spoken like a true insider. No, Alan Greenspan was a disaster. Everybody in Washington, liberals and conservatives, said he kept interest rates too low too long. Of course, the solution was lower them even more, and they think that's going to solve our problem. But if I had to name one person that did a little bit of good, and that was Paul Volcker. He at least knew how to end or help, end the inflation. But of course, with my position that I don't think highly of the Federal Reserve, and I think we should have sound money, and we shouldn't have somebody deciding what the interest rate should be and how much money supply we should have. I mean, nobody satisfies me. But certainly Alan Greenspan has ushered in the biggest bubble. And what did we do? We've continued the same thing, doing the same thing. We think the inflation under Alan Greenspan was bad, so we're trying to solve the problem by inflating even further. So Bernanke compounds the problem. He's inflating twice as fast as Greenspan was. But Greenspan caused so much trouble, and he used to believe in the gold standard. I think he's coming around to that. And before he retires, he'll write his biography and explain why he's coming back to the gold standard.
I want to go from a gold standard to a small business person who is from New Hampshire, who's in the audience with us and has a question about small business, of which she has founded one. Margot Thompson.
Businesses like mine have great difficulty obtaining credit. What specifically would you do to make bank lending more accessible to small businesses?
If you would direct it to...
I was told to direct it to you.
So Governor Romney? Yes.
Give her the answer, Charles.
I ask questions, not answer them, Governor. Okay. I forgot to explain that.
What's happened in this country under the Obama administration is that you have a president who I think is well-meaning, but just over his head when it comes to the economy. And the absolute wrong time to have the absolute wrong people put together a financial regulatory bill was right now, and Barney Frank and Chris Dodd. They were the wrong guys at the wrong time, because what they did with this new bill is usher in what will be hundreds and thousands of pages of new regulations. The big banks, the big money center banks in Wall Street, they can deal with that. I spoke with one banker there that said they have hundreds of lawyers working on that legislation and trying to implement it. For community banks that provide loans to businesses like yours, they can't possibly deal with a regulatory burden like that. Then you have inspectors coming in and writing down their assets and saying they're not worth as much as the bank thought they were worth, and therefore the banks are unable to lend. Small community banks across this country are starving and struggling because of inspectors that are making their job impossible, and because of regulation that's fine for the big banks because they can deal with it. It's a killer for the small banks, and those small banks loaning to small businesses and entrepreneurs are what have typically gotten our economy out of recession. What the president has done on almost every dimension is exactly the wrong thing to get this economy going again.
Congresswoman Bachmann.
I'd like to add to that, because the Dodd-Frank bill is the Jobs and Housing Destruction Act. And I have spoken to Iowa bankers, and they told me that they are going to see the collapse of community banks, just like Mitt said, all across the state. I talked to a banker in Texas who owns multiple branch banks. He said he's going to lose $20 million on his bottom line this year because of all of the compliance. So government is putting a huge layer of regulation on banks. We will see literally thousands of banks close their door. That will be hard for small business owners like you and like me. And so that's going to hurt real people, and it will lead to job destruction. That's why I introduced the bill to repeal Dodd-Frank, because it'll hurt credit, not add to credit. And by the way, that's why we see the new $5 debit card fee that people are paying every month that they're upset about because of Dodd-Frank. And that was insider dealing, because Senator Durbin had former staffers that came to lobby him on behalf of retailers. This is dirty dealing. As President of the United States, I would end all of these payoffs to political donors by our legislators. That's wrong. That's got to end.
Here and then go over here. Well, first and then there.
In addition to what Governor Romney said, I agree, repeal Dodd-Frank, but also get rid of the capital gains tax. That's a big wall between people with ideas and people with money. And we know which plan gets rid of the capital gains tax.
No.
I just want to add one quick thing. Dodd-Frank, obviously, is a disaster. It's estimated it's going to cost $1 trillion. I think one of the reasons we're not getting anywhere, and we're not getting anywhere in Washington, it's a partisan fight. It's a fight over power, because Sarbanes-Oxley, which was done by the Republicans, it cost $1 trillion too. It's repealed that too. I mean, if you look at what we've done as Republicans, we have caused a lot of problems. To say it's all in these past 2 years, I mean, I think that is so misleading. That's why the American people are sick and tired of listening to the politicians.
All right, I want to bring my colleagues in.
Right.
Karen?
Governor Perry, taxpayers stand to lose $500 million in the collapse of Solyndra, which is a solar energy firm that was a centerpiece of the Obama Green Jobs Initiative. Do you think there were inadequate safeguards there, or do you think this is just the risk we run when the government gets involved in subsidizing new industries and technologies?
Well, I don't think the federal government should be involved in that type of investment, period. If states want to choose to do that, I think that's fine for states to do that.
And you have in Texas done that with the Emerging Technology Fund, but your own state auditor said earlier this year that that fund is neither accountable nor transparent. The Dallas Morning News reported that that fund gave $16 million to companies that are connected to your campaign contributors. And like Solyndra, some of the Emerging Technology Fund's investments have gone bust. So how is this different in principle from the Obama administration's efforts to pick winners in the future economy?
Well, first off, the Texas legislature has full oversight of that committee. It's approved it for, I think, since 2003. So every 2 years, the Texas legislature looks at it. It's had full oversight. And I can promise you the 54,600 jobs that have been created and then $14+ billion worth of investment that has come out of the enterprise fund in the state of Texas. Those people that have jobs today in the state of Texas, they are absolutely happy that we've got a program like that. And 75% of those emerging technology fund dollars, or my appointees, never made a contribution to me, period.
But you talk about oversight. The fact is that in some instances, your appointees have overruled the regional boards that have tried to turn back some of these deals.
Every one of those projects had the lieutenant governor, the speaker, and the governor's office. So there's extraordinary amount of oversight in those programs, and we're proud of them. I mean, we feel like that those are part of the reason that Texas has led the nation in the creation of jobs. While this country was losing 2.5 million jobs, Texas was creating 1 million jobs. That's the kind of leadership that America's longing for, someone that actually understands that you have to be able to give a climate where people know they can risk their capital and have a chance to have a return on that investment.
We have one more video I want to show. Here it is.
The more people who own their home, the better off America is. And we're making good progress. Our nation's 68% home ownership rate is the highest ever. More people own homes now than ever before in the country's history, and that's exciting for the future of America.
Speaker Gingrich, has the American dream of owning a home no longer a realistic dream? And is it too easy in America?
You know, there's a stream of American thought that really wishes we would decay and fall apart and that the future would be bleak so the government could then share the misery. It was captured by Jimmy Carter in his Malaise speech. It's captured every week by Barack Obama in his apologias disguised as press conferences. The fact is, and the governor's exactly right. When we get back, I mean, a lot of these folks are right about a lot of things. His energy plan, his industrial manufacturing plan, most of what he put down, a fair amount, but not totally what my good friend said there, hard money with a very limited Federal Reserve. What Huntsman has done, and she's right on repealing Dodd-Frank. I'm shocked that the House Republicans haven't repealed Dodd-Frank. They ought to do it now. They ought to repeal Sarbanes-Oxley now. If we get back on track, the China, and you know this as a former ambassador, the Chinese couldn't compete with us in 100 years if we got our act together in this country and we got back to doing the right things in this country, at which point we could afford to buy houses, which would solve virtually everything else. You got to be able to afford it to be able to buy it, and that's where things went wrong in the last decade.
All right, Juliana.
Mr. Kaine, You recently said, quoting you, "Don't blame Wall Street, don't blame the big banks. If you don't have a job and you're not rich, blame yourself." So are you telling the 14 million unemployed Americans that it's their fault that they don't have a job?
No, the question was, that response was directed at the people that are protesting on Wall Street, not that 14 million people who are out of work for no reason of their own other than that the economy is not growing, not the millions of people that are underemployed. That statement was not directed at them. It was specifically directed at the people who are protesting on Wall Street, and I also said that they have basically targeted the wrong target. It should be against the failed policies of this administration, not Wall Street is where they should be protesting.
Governor Romney, I want to ask you, because President Obama's jobs bill stalled in the Senate today, and so it may have to be broken into component parts for Congress to vote on. If the payroll tax cut is not extended, that would mean a tax increase for all Americans. What would be the consequences of that?
No one likes to see tax increases, but look, these stimulus bills the president comes out with that are supposedly going to create jobs, we've now seen this played in the theater several times, and what we're seeing hasn't worked. The American people know that when he went into office and borrowed $800 billion for a massive job stimulus program, that they didn't see the jobs. Some of those green jobs we were supposed to get, that's money down the drain. The right course for America is not to keep spending money on stimulus bills, but instead to make permanent changes to the tax code. Look, when you give it, as the president's bill does, if you give a temporary change to the payroll tax, and you say we're going to extend this for a year or two, employers don't hire people for a year or two. They make an investment in a person that goes over a long period of time. And so if you want to get this economy going again, you have to have people who understand how employers think, what it takes to create jobs. And what it takes to create jobs is more than just a temporary shift in a tax stimulus. It needs instead fundamental restructuring of our economy to make sure that we are the most attractive place in the world for investment, for innovation, for growth, and for hiring, and we can do that again.
So you would be okay with seeing the payroll tax cut?
Look, I don't like temporary little Band-Aids. I want to fundamentally restructure America's foundation economically.
Before closing question, I want not this hour and a half to pass without some recognition and conversation about the question of disparity in America.
Governor Perry, over the last 30 years, the income of the wealthiest 1% of Americans has grown by more than 300%. And yet we have more people living in poverty in this country than at any time in the last 50 years. Is this acceptable? And what would you do to close that gap?
The reason we have that many people living in poverty is because we got a president of the United States that's a job killer. That's what's wrong with this country today. You have a president who does not understand how to create wealth. He has overtaxed, overregulated the small businessmen and women to the point where they're laying off people. 2.5 million Americans are out there who have lost their jobs. We have 14 million without work. This president, I will suggest to you, is the biggest deterrent to getting this country back on track. And we have to do everything we can to replace Barack Obama in 2012.
All right, there's more to it. Okay, but we're almost out of time. I want to give you a chance, and then we have to go to the final question.
There's more to it than that. I agree with Rick, what he said. But the biggest problem with poverty in America, we don't talk about here because it's an economic discussion, and that is the breakdown of the American family. You want to look at the poverty rate among families that have a husband and wife working in them? It's 5% today. A family that's headed by one person, it's 30% today. We need to do something. We need to talk about economics. The home, the word home in Greek is the basis of the word economy. It is the foundation of our country. We need to have a policy that supports families, that encourages marriage, that has fathers take responsibility for their children. You can't have limited government. You can't have a wealthy society if the family breaks down that basic unit of society, and that needs to be included in this economic.
All right, I've got one last question. One last question with 30 minutes. One last question. One last question as we close this evening, and each of you, 30 seconds. What is it about you that you want to connect with the American people in their both despair and in their hope for the future that says something essentially about who you are? And I begin with Congresswoman Bachmann.
I'm sorry, Charlie.
A little distraction.
It is about the individual. We have 30 seconds here. We've talked about issues here, but I want to talk for a moment as a last impression, a sense of what it is about you that you want to hear and let the American people know about you and your sense of recognizing their own pain as well as their hope.
Well, I do. I grew up in a middle-class home. We went to below
30 seconds.
we went to below poverty when my parents divorced. And my mother worked very hard. We all did. We all got jobs. And we were able to work our way through college. And eventually, my husband and I started a business. We have broken hearts for at-risk kids, Charlie. That's why we took 23 foster children into our home. I believe the best solutions are the ones closest to home. If we reach out as individuals to help people and have broken hearts for people and care for them on a personal basis, then we don't need big government to step in and do that job. The more that we can do to love people, the better off the society
Herman
will be.
King. 30 seconds.
I can connect with people's pain because I was poor before I was poor. My dad worked 3 jobs. I understand what that means, but more importantly, with my career and with my record, I understand that leaders are supposed to make sure we're working on the right problems. We assign the right priority. Surround yourself with the right people, which will allow you to put together the right plans. And yes, sometimes those plans will be bold plans because this economy is on life support. We don't need to trim around the edges. We need a bold plan.
Congressman, Speaker Gingrich.
Well, look, I grew up in an Army brat family. We moved all over the country. In recent years, I've had relatives out of work. I've had folks who are trying to find jobs for up to a year. We have, I think, a pretty good sense of the pain level. But I also think it's important to say to leaders that you find solutions. I don't think people hire one of us just to say, I sympathize with you. I think they hire us to say, this is how we will solve it. And I would say every person at this table is more likely to solve those problems than Barack Obama.
Congressman Paul.
My motivation, my goals has always been to promote liberty, believing that's what made America great. If we want prosperity, if we want peace, we understand what the cause of liberty is all about. And we have to understand that a free market system and sound money gives us the prosperity. And it also is the humanitarian program, because once you get into the welfare state and the socialist state, it all backfires. So if you care about people, you believe in liberty, that's what made America great. That's what I want to restore.
Senator Santorum.
As was mentioned, I grew up in a steel town, and one of the things that I realized is that when manufacturing left, a lot of the people in the middle income of America left. And I just read a recent study that actually income mobility from the bottom 2 quintiles up into the middle of up into the middle income is actually greater, the mobility in Europe, than it is in America today. We need to change that, and the way you do it is by creating jobs in the manufacturing sector of the economy, which is what I will do. It will create that income mobility. It'll create the opportunity for semi-skilled and lower skilled and skilled workers to rise in society. It will take those people off of Occupy and bring them into the workplace where they can have family-sustaining jobs.
Governor Huntsman.
Not only have I seen and participated in the creation of a great family business where jobs mean something, but I presided over a state that delivered the lowest level of unemployment in this country, 2.4%. And when I saw on the faces of people who had the dignity of a job, you knew what it meant to moms and dads and entire families. And when Sheriff Hardy, who is here in Hillsborough, New Hampshire, when he talks about his deputies who for the first time are handing out foreclosure notices to the middle class, and they're seeing a rise in suicides, they're seeing a rise in spousal abuse, they're seeing a rise in substance abuse. It gives you a sense of what it means to have the dignity of a job. We don't have enough of them in this country.
Governor Perry.
Charlie, as the son of tenant farmers and a young man who had the opportunity to wear the uniform of my country, and then the great privilege to serve as the governor of the second largest state in this country, I've got not only the CEO experience, but also working with the private sector to create the jobs. And that's what people are begging for. Talking to that out-of-work rig worker out in the Gulf of Mexico today, they're begging for someone to make America, America again.
Governor Romney.
You know, we talked about crisis this evening, economic crisis, people out of work, incomes going down. But there's another crisis, and that's that people wonder whether their future will be brighter for the kids than it's been for them. It's always been what it means to be American, to have a greater degree of confidence in the future than even what we've enjoyed ourselves. And what we have to do is to have leadership in this country, like the men and women at this table, who believe in America. My experience will help us get our values strong, get our economy strong, and make sure that our military is second to none in the world. I'm absolutely devoted to making America the strongest nation on earth. And if you don't want that as your objective, don't vote for me. We already have a president that doesn't make that his first objective.
All right, I want to thank each and all of the candidates who sat at this table this evening. As I said at the beginning, I believe in tables, and I believe that places where you can come and talk about the country and its future and your beliefs is important. I secondly want to thank Karen and thank Juliana for joining us. I want to thank all of you who came here this evening to hear these candidates. Thank you very much. For those at home, thank you for watching. A post-debate program will follow this. We thank you for your time. Good night.
Cease at some point to be a free economy. And the idea of saying, we just want a little more. Just give us some more tax revenue. We need that. That is not the answer for America. The answer is to cut federal spending. The answer is to cap how much the federal government can spend as a percentage of our economy and have a balanced budget amendment.
It starts with, unlike your proposals, throwing out the current tax code. Continuing to pivot off the current tax code is not going to boost this economy. This is why we developed 999. 9% corporate business flat tax, 9% personal income flat tax, and a 9% national sales tax. And it will pass, Senator, because the American people want it to pass.
And welcome to our coverage of the Bloomberg Washington Post debate. What a night, a spirited night. I thought, Margaret, they stayed on plan. They actually did talk about the economy.
They absolutely did. A lot of heat in that room while we freeze out here. But we've got some great voices here to give us some analysis of what we just learned. Bloomberg political analyst Matthew Dowd here with us. Also, a man who knows these parts well, John Sununu, former congressman and senator from New Hampshire. And Senator, 100 days till the New Hampshire primary. Is Mitt Romney the front runner still?
Oh, I think so. And we saw two clips from Herman Cain and Governor Romney, two people that are probably most closely associated with business experience, a debate about the economy. I think they came through pretty sharp, pretty crisp, and I think they at least left their supporters feeling that they're backing the right people.
Matthew, let me go to the negative side here. Who lost this debate?
I think Governor Perry needed to come on strong and needed to come on a lot with more energy and needed to come on with some more planning on the plans on the economy. I thought he came away, basically he didn't help himself. He was on a downward trend. I don't think he did anything to stop that downward trend. And you saw by the interplay between the candidates when they asked each other, all those people around the table think the competitors are Cain and Romney. They think those are the two people in this race while you watch them how they behave with each other.
The dynamic of the evening, and you're looking right now, by the way, viewers, at a live shot of Spalding Auditorium where the candidates are now meeting and greeting some of the students and some of the prominent business people in attendance. More than 800 people, I believe, in that room tonight. And Matt, it was a different dynamic having them around the table, facing off, getting to ask each other questions. How did that change the substance of what we heard?
I think that's really interesting, Margaret. I think a big driver of it is nobody got a gotcha question. So there was none of this reaction like, oh, I'm about to get asked something I shouldn't have been asked. And so there was no gotcha questions. But sitting on the table, around the table, I think, forced that question to question that they did. And this is the first time that was done. And I thought we got much of what we got out of this debate was in the candidates question and question to each other.
Senator, your thought, please, on that, on the format of this debate.
The format worked. It worked for the reason that Matt described. Having them a little closer to each other, I think, makes candidates a little less likely to throw a bomb, to just try to drop a wisecrack or a line, because they're sitting right next to the other candidates. The exchange was good, and the fact that it was entirely focused on the economy meant that the questioners and the candidates could come back to issues. It meant there was a little redundancy at times, but sometimes that's the only way you get through the clutter and the detail.
Very quickly, just in 20 seconds, and we'll come back for an extended discussion on this. When do we start seeing some of these 8 candidates drift away?
It really depends on the candidate. It'll be a very slow process. You have some candidates like Ron Paul, Newt Gingrich perhaps, that they're in it for their supporters. They're in it to make a statement. Whether they're at 10% or 15% of the polls or 2% of the polls, they're going to see through to New Hampshire.
We're going to come back with John Sununu and Matthew Dowd here after the debate. Lots to talk about. Coming up, we've got Minnesota Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann. Also, Austin Goolsbee and Rich Clarida will join us. Don't go away from Hanover, New Hampshire.
Isn't it past my bedtime? Well, I don't know about you, but I can't sleep with the thoughts of credit downgrades, financial turmoil, and skyrocketing debt dancing in my head. So, how do we fix it? If you just use spending cuts, the entire budget would have to be cut by 31%. Draconian cuts that would threaten defense and the social safety net. If defense and Social Security are exempted, then everything else would have to be slashed by about 50%. Highly unlikely America would go for that. If you try to solve the problem with just revenue increases, taxes would have to increase close to 50%. Who wants that? The only solution is a bipartisan long-term plan that kicks in when our economy is stronger. This will restore confidence today, because we'll have a real solution in place to address our national debt. More importantly, it gives me the same chance at a bright future that other generations had. And that's really what this is about, right? Right?
If no one ever challenged the status quo, the Earth would still be flat. Rock would have no role. For decades, Infiniti has challenged what a luxury car should be. We built the world's first high-performance hybrid to achieve 32 mpg, the first around-view monitor. We believe a luxury car should connect you to the road. It should move you emotionally and inspire. Infiniti, inspired performance.
Did you know that in our world, 29,000 kids die each day from preventable causes?
Did you know children are dying because of AIDS?
Millions of children.
Millions of children are missing a future.
What if we decided not to accept this anymore?
What if we gave children what they need to survive?
UNICEF works in over 150 countries.
Saving kids' lives. Visit unicefusa.org or call 1-800-FOR-UNICEF.
Okay.
Understood.
Welcome back to our special broadcast from the site of the Republican presidential debate here at Dartmouth College. Joining us now from Spalding Auditorium, the site of that debate, is businessman Herman Cain. He is surging ahead in the polls, former CEO of Godfather's Pizza. According to the polling that we've conducted at Bloomberg, he's actually in the #2 spot. Mr. Cain, you got a lot of heat today about the specifics of your tax plan. How did you feel you responded?
I felt as if I responded well with the attacks on my 999 plan, but you know, I expected it because it's so simple, transparent, efficient, and neutral. I expected a lot of people to come at it, and they did. But the thing is, it still is different from all of the other plans in that all of their proposals pivot off of the current tax code, which I eliminate and put in the 999. So I felt as if the responses, I had an adequate opportunity to respond.
Mr. Cain, how are you going to appeal to independent voters? You've got to broaden your base here. You're surging in the polls, as Margaret mentioned. How do you appeal away from conservatives to the independent voters of New Hampshire?
The independent voters are attracted to my solutions. The fact that I put the 999 plan out there, which is getting a lot of attention, the fact that I have a specific solution for for Social Security, which is the Chilean model, the fact that I have a specific approach to how we deal with illegal immigration, the fact that I have a specific philosophy of how we deal with foreign policy. In other words, I'm putting solutions on the table. That's what's appealing to independents as well as a lot of Democrats. I've had a lot of Democrats who also have said they like my solutions and therefore they are going to do something differently.
Mr. Kaine, you got a lot of heat about that 999 plan, specifically 9% sales tax, 9% corporate rate, 9% individual tax rate. You have been in a consumer business in the past. Do you really think you could sell more to consumers if you are charging them more just to put food on the table? Isn't that a regressive tax?
It is not a regressive tax, because what we are doing is we are taking the embedded taxes out of the goods and services that we produce here in this country. If you look at it closely, and we had it evaluated using dynamic analysis, prices don't go up. They do not go up. Plus, consumers have the option to stretch their dollar because of buying used goods versus new. Here's one of the big advantages, is why it's not regressive. The payroll tax. Everybody's paying 15.3. They will now go to 9. That's a 6 percentage point improvement, and for most people, they will end up paying net less in taxes. It is not regressive.
Mr. Kaine, I'm going to suggest that you appeal to the already converted. How are you going to talk to people that aren't comfortable with businessmen in America? How are you going to get away from the corporate theory and approach the many, many Americans distrustful of big business?
Well, I happen to believe that a lot of people might be mistrustful of big business because some media outlets have basically helped to build this mistrust. If you go directly to many of the workers in America that are working for good companies and great companies, they don't have this mistrust. I served on the board of directors for at least a dozen companies over the last 20 years, and I know that when a company is run well, they treat their employees and their workers well, and they do not have a mistrust. I happen to believe that the majority of the companies in America don't suffer from that from their own employees. So I believe that my business background is appealing to people based upon the direct feedback that I have been able to get while I have been on this campaign journey.
Mr. Kaine, former Governor Romney did directly address your tax plan, saying that he found it to be too simplistic. How do you respond to that?
Well, he's dead wrong. His plan is more conflicted than mine. You see, I didn't get a chance to make the point that if you look at Governor Romney's plan, he takes one set of loopholes and moves them out and brings in another set. My plan is the only plan that was represented up here tonight that gets rid of the tax code and starts with a bold, fresh approach that's simple and transparent. So yes, he is saying that my plan was overly simplified. The American people, I believe, are looking for solutions that they can understand. Yes, I'm going to have an energy independence plan. Yes, I'm going to have a plan to deal with China. They are going to be in separate pieces of legislation such that the American people can understand it.
You're thanking him.
Got it. Got it. Herman Cain, thank you so much. Congratulations on a great debate. Here are some of the highlights of the evening. Let's show them to you right now. The first person to fire is Bernanke. How about this on Chairman Bernanke?
You can't get the country to go in the right direction and get Washington to work if you don't have a president that's a leader. And 3 years ago, we selected a person who'd never had any leadership experience, never worked in the private sector, never had the opportunity to actually bring people together, and he hasn't been able to do so. He said he'd bring us hope and change. Instead, he's divided the nation and tried to blame other people.
The first person to fire is Bernanke, who was a disaster as chairman of the Federal Reserve. The second person to fire is Geithner. The fact is, in both the Bush and the Obama administrations, the fix has been in.
Their tax rate someday in their peak earning years, Charlie, could be as much as 75%. Who's going to get out of bed in the morning to go to work if they're paying 75% tax rates? We've got to get our spending house in order and cut back on spending.
I don't want to go to a trade war. I want to beat China. I want to go to war with China and make America the most attractive place in the world to do business.
I think what you should see is the block granting, not having to go to Washington, D.C. and ask them, Mother, may I, every time you come up with a concept or an idea.
And in Spalding Auditorium, our White House reporter, Juliana Goldman, part of this debate this night. Juliana, your thoughts, please.
Well, Tom, you know, one of the things that I really believe that this debate showed, you really got a glimpse into a number of the candidates, not just positions on the economy, but just how they articulate their economic policies. I thought it's particularly interesting, Governor Perry, he kept coming back when you pressed him on jobs, he kept coming back to energy policy, and that energy is the way to create, I think he said, some 1.5 million jobs. But one thing that it didn't seem like any of them could really necessarily address is how to create jobs immediately. And that was actually one of the reasons why we had to come back at the end and ask them to address, or ask Governor Romney to address exactly what is going to happen now that the president's jobs bill has been stalled. We began the debate by talking about dysfunction. And so where does that leave us now? We're still in gridlock.
Well, the other thing I saw, Juliana, and a big splash out on Twitter with Mitt Romney was this word hypothetical. I believe at one point you said the word hypothetical like 4 times. What was it like to have a hypothetical moment with Governor Romney?
Well, I don't think it was a hypothetical moment, Tom, and that's why we posed the question to him, because as we know, we talk about this issue every hour of every day on Bloomberg television. The threat of contagion from Europe is very real, and it's something that any of these presidential candidates, should they win, are going to have to be dealing with.
Absolutely. And Juliana, I thought that was a great question.
It was.
Look at the debt markets, 96% certainty Greece is going to default. You would think that Juliana's question was absolutely on the mark.
It's hypothetically cold here as well. The only one not cold is John Sununu.
We're going to go to break right now, and then 2 of the nation's top economists, Austin Goolsbee, former White House advisor, Rich Claret will also be joining us. But first, Minnesota Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann is next.
These are the Americans who will have to deal with the consequences of our nation's spiraling debt. Our kids.
Their future can be bright. If we act to fix our finances, we can invest in what makes our economy strong, like infrastructure and education, while protecting the social safety net for those who need it.
We can restore our nation's confidence if we have a bipartisan plan that puts America on a sound fiscal path. Our future's at stake.
This isn't about party or politics. It's about the America our kids will inherit.
Cholesterol scares me. If we're borderline, we gotta ask our doctor about garlic. Garlic's clinically tested ingredient maintains healthy cholesterol naturally. That's why pharmacists recommend it most. Come on, work with me. Eat right, exercise, garlic.
Before Allegra D, congestion and pressure from allergies shut me down. After Allegra D, I can breathe.
Allegra D provides fast, non-drowsy, 24-hour relief of your toughest symptoms, even reducing swelling that can cause congestion and pressure.
After Allegra D, I have it all.
Providing clean water for the village. But there are several villages nearby that could use our new system.
Introducing GoToMeeting with HD Faces. Simple, high-definition group video conferencing that will change the way you work. And perhaps a whole lot more. Visit GoToMeeting.com and sign up for your free 30-day trial.
If no one ever challenged the status quo, the Earth would still be flat. Rock would have no role. For decades, Infiniti has challenged what a luxury car should be. We built the world's first high-performance hybrid to achieve 32 mpg, the first around-view monitor. We believe a luxury car should connect you to the road. It should move you emotionally and inspire. Infiniti, inspired performance.
If anyone depends on you, listen to this important message. 3 out of 4 Americans know they need life insurance, and many who have it know they don't have enough. Sound like you? How would your family get by without you? Would they lose their home or their dreams of a good education? They don't have to. you can guarantee those you love $200, $500, $750,000 or more with life insurance through AIG Direct. We're part of AIG, one of the world's largest insurance organizations, and we'll help you get more for your money, up to 70% more. Just look, less than $16 a month buys a 40-year-old man a $250,000 term life policy. That's up to 3 times what you can get from other companies for the same price. No wonder millions of people worldwide rely on AIG companies. The call is free, the quote is free, and there's no obligation. Get the protection your family needs through AIG Direct, a leader in insurance.
For a free quote, call 1-800-567-4450 or visit AIGDirect.com.
Welcome back to Bloomberg's special coverage of the Republican presidential candidate debate. Joining us now, very special guest, Minnesota Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann. Welcome to the show, Congresswoman.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be on with you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out in the cold with us. How do you think
Minnesota weather.
There you go.
Summer. That's right. Summertime in Minnesota.
How do you think you performed tonight?
Oh, well, I thought it went great. I enjoyed every aspect of the debate. It was very conversational. I thought Charlie did a wonderful job, and all of the interviewers did. Karen did a great job. And I think that the people at home were able to see a picture of us that's maybe a little more real when we're around a table versus being at the podium. I loved it.
You mentioned in the debate a challenged childhood and the path you've taken to get this far. I've read as an amateur in politics of challenges in your campaign in the last number of days and weeks. How are you going to write the campaign? How are you going to get a new momentum, a new initiative as you go further into October and November?
Well, remember, I'm the one candidate who actually won the Iowa straw poll. That's a big deal. That's the biggest straw poll that there is in the country. And no other candidate in the history of the Iowa straw poll has won it in as little time as I won it. I'm also the first woman to have ever won the Iowa straw poll. We're doing very well. And the reason why we are is because my message resonated with the people in the Iowa straw poll. We're seeing that here in New Hampshire.
What are you and Ed Rollins going to do in the next couple of days to really get this going for you again?
Well, my campaign is moving forward. We have a wonderful team, and we've just completed 4 days of a bus tour through New Hampshire, and we'll be starting another 4-day bus tour all through Iowa. So we're delighted. We're talking about the issues that people care about. That's what I appreciate about the debate tonight.
Yeah.
The #1 issue is jobs and the economy.
It absolutely
and the Bloomberg and Washington Post debate focused on the main thing, and keeping the main thing is good for people back home.
Well, I want to ask you, we've polled, Bloomberg and Washington Post polled Republicans, Republican-leaning independents, and 50% say they would be willing to pay more in taxes because of the challenge with the deficit. Do you feel, since you oppose tax increases, that there's really a split among Republicans right now?
I think that people want to see the economy get going. And right now we know that 53% of Americans pay income taxes to the federal government and 47% do not. So I think we need to definitely change the tax code. We need to get it more in line because everyone benefits from this magnificent country. Everyone should pay something. I'm a former federal tax lawyer. I want to see us overhaul the tax code. And I'm a job creator. My husband and I started our business from scratch. We run it at a profit. We think turning a profit is a good thing. We want to see more businesses.
How do you tackle, with your tax law, how do you tackle, Congresswoman, the idea of who's wealthy where? Is it 200,000 or 250,000, as we heard tonight? Should it be a higher number? How do you define wealthy or big income in this nation?
I don't think that's any business of the federal government. I think every individual needs to have the opportunity to create the wealth and reach as high as they can possibly go. That's up to each person. It's not for the federal government to limit people and limit their success.
One of the questions we asked of Herman Cain was, how do you take the next step and broaden your base? You're obviously pretty well known among Republican activists. As time goes on, pretty well known among Republicans here in New Hampshire. But what do you do to branch out to independents who are going to vote here in New Hampshire and elsewhere in the primaries?
I think that's a tremendous advantage that I have. I'm the first Republican woman ever to get elected out of the state of Minnesota. I do that by getting Democrats and independents and apolitical people to vote for me. And the reason why they do is because I say what I mean and I mean what I say. People know that they can count on me for what I'm saying. That's why.
Congresswoman, thank you so much. Lizzie O'Leary, she is in the spin room where they're talking after this debate. Their surrogates and the reporters are there, and who the contender, who the winner was. Lizzie, what are you hearing?
Well, look, Tom, there's a very easy way to translate Spin Room 101, and it's visual, so it works that we're on TV, so I'm going to ask you guys to play along with me. When you go this way, you have the Romney people. By and large, they're very happy. And one thing to know, that if you are in the spin room and you have, say, an aide spinning for you, an advisor spinning for you, it's probably a pretty good sign. That means your candidate is not sticking around right now. Romney's folks feel like he did very well. I was talking to one of his senior advisors who felt like he came out swinging. On the other hand, if you are a candidate yourself, you're coming into the spin room, you're here because there's something you want to make up for. There was a moment that you didn't quite hit during the debate. There's something that you wanted to see. So we saw John Huntsman in here. We saw Rick Santorum in here. And that essentially completes the metaphor for you, because it is a visual moment here. You can see the way people are spread out, and you can see, because of the clusters of reporters, who they want the quote from, who they think they need to get in their story, guys.
All right, Lizzie O'Leary there in the very loud spin room. Meantime, we're going to come back after this break, and we're going to talk about some of the claims made tonight by the candidates that did not exactly ring true, weren't wholly accurate. Here's one of Herman Cain's opponents talking about his now famous tax plan.
I think it's a catchy phrase. In fact, I thought it was the price of a pizza when I first heard it.
My mom is, well, weird. She won't eat eggs without hot sauce. She has kind of funny-looking toes. She's always touching my hair. And she does this dancing finger thing.
With advanced technology from GE, now doctors can diagnose diseases like breast cancer on a cellular level, so that women like Christy's mom can get personalized treatment that's as unique as she is.
She's definitely not like other moms. You know, my mom is pretty weird.
She notices when my skin's rough.
Gold Bond Ultimate Softening Lotion with shea butter for soft, healthy skin. Gold Bond Ultimate Softening.
This stuff really works. And start softening your skin in the shower with Gold Bond Ultimate Softening Body Wash.
In the grip of arthritis pain, nagging back pain, joint pain, break the grip with Aspercreme. Its maximum strength medicine relieves your pain, and there's no embarrassing odor. Break the grip of pain with odor-free Aspercreme.
Itchy dry scalp? Could be your shampoo. Now there's a Selsun Blue just for itchy dry scalp. Strong itch fighters target the source of scalp itch, while 5 moisturizers keep hair healthy.
No more itch.
Selsun Blue Itchy Dry Scalp.
Got a clue? Get the blue.
Get to sleep? Can't stay asleep? That's why there's Unisom. Clinically proven Unisom helps you fall asleep 33% faster and stay asleep, so you wake feeling rested.
Morning.
Unisom. Fall asleep faster, sleep longer.
If no one ever challenged the status quo, the Earth would still be flat. Rock would have no role. For decades, Infinity has challenged what a luxury car should be. We built the world's first high-performance hybrid to achieve 32 mpg, the first around-view monitor. We believe a luxury car should connect you to the road. It should move you emotionally and inspire. Infinity, inspired performance.
Welcome back. Well, dozens of Bloomberg and Washington Post reporters and analysts have been listening in very closely to the debate tonight. Megan Hughes joins us now. Megan, I know you've been running the numbers, crunching them. Give us a little bit of a reality check. Who stretched the truth tonight?
Well, it's not just me, Margaret. 40 people were involved here. Reporters from the Washington Post, Bloomberg News, Bloomberg Government. Let's start out topic number 1, Herman Cain's 999 plan that we've been talking so much about. Cain says it would eliminate the current U.S. tax code and instead tax sales, gross income, and businesses all at 9%. Let's take a listen to him talking about that.
Bloomberg Government has run the numbers, and your plan would have raised no more than $2 trillion. And even with that shortfall, you'd still be slapping a 9% sales tax on food and medicine.
The problem with that analysis is that it is incorrect.
So you heard it there, Margaret. He says, Kaine saying that Bloomberg's analysis of his plan is, quote, incorrect. He says later in the debate that it's because they start with assumptions that we don't make. But our reality check team, Margaret, pointed out Kaine hasn't released any public analysis, though he says one has been done. He hasn't detailed the assumptions that his campaign is using. So under the data publicly available right now, here's what Bloomberg calculated. Kaine's plan would generate $2 trillion. That's if it were in place in 2010. Now compare that to the $2.2 trillion